Hi everyone, welcome to a video for day one of the 2016 Aintree Grand National Festival, I suppose you call it now. 3 weeks removed from Cheltenham. I can't believe how quick it's come up. Just to let you know, I'll be doing a video for each of the 3 days, and someone's requested that I do a separate video for the Grand National, so that's what I'm going to do this year. Though, watch in brief, my record in the Grand National is terrible. I either win or my horse falls. It seems to be the way it goes. Also, I've got to do a shameless plug, actually, but some exciting news for our family anyway. As you know, if people who go to Aintree or not, they have a lot of musical entertainment acts on this year, the likes of The Feeling are playing, Escala are on, and a load of other ones, basically. And my niece, 18-year-old Bronnie Hughes, has actually been selected to play at Aintree over the 3 days, so it's a really exciting time for her on actually playing across a load of the different stages. So for anyone who's going, please go and check her out. She's really, really good, very talented. All the support would go down well. Also follow her on Twitter if you want, which is on @Bronnie97, or go into YouTube and check out her songs. Some really good tunes. Anyway, plug done. Now on to the racing. 140 is the opener, which is the Manifesto Novices Chase, which basically brings a lot of Cheltenham form together. Garde la Victoire and L'Ami Serge both ran in the JLT. I actually fancied Garde la Victoire, but I don't know what went wrong. His jumping went to pieces throughout the race. He didn't travel particularly well, and when he eventually fell, I was actually watching the race with a friend of mine. I just said, he's going to fall any minute now, about 3 fences before it. He just didn't seem happy on the day. It was a worry. It was quite a big fall. Previously was good. You would have a chance of bouncing back, but there's got to be a big worry there. L'Ami Serge came third in that race. I've watched this race a few times, and I just got a feeling the jockey kicked too soon. He was coming down the hill, and I always think you want to keep a bit and go up the hill. The horse, to be fair, dragged him to the lead, and he went for it, and then eventually got caught by Black Hercules, who's obviously a massive staying horse, all about stamina, and he also lost second in the end. If he doesn't go too early today, back on a flat track, reins it in, I think L'Ami Serge could run a big race. The one thing I would say is he was getting pumped along and he really went for it early, so that was a hard race. It'd be interesting to see what's taken out of him. The horse I like here is Size and John, obviously because I think Douvan is an absolute world beater, and this horse has come second to Douvan the last twice, including in the Arkle. Now, in the interesting one, he travelled up well. Douvan obviously was in a different league to anything in the world there. But if you actually look at him, he came under pressure and looked like I thought he was going to drop away, but he stayed on well again towards the end. So I think the step up in trip is sensible. He's relatively lightly raced, and I think Size and John looks like the strong option here. Got to mention Rock the World, who actually tipped up for the Grand Annual. He came a good third in that race, but he's out of handicaps now. And while he's got some form, it'd have to be a big step up to take a part here. And same with Boob Royal, came second in the Close Brothers Chase, but has actually run in this level before and got found out. So the chance it will happen again. It's a great start to the meeting. Well, 1, 2, 3 I'm going for is Size and John from L'Ami Serge and Garde la Victoire. The second race is the Juvenile Hurdle over 2 miles, and there's 2 sets of form which are coming here. Triumph Hurdle form and the Fred Winter form. My feeling is the Triumph Hurdle form is going to be stronger than the Fred Winter, because I just a feeling that I've actually got. Diego de Charmille won the Fred Winter, but this race looks a lot harder, and on that day he was all out towards the end, and there was some falling in behind. Not that I'm worried about that because I got the winner, which I tipped Diego de Charmille, but you never know what would have happened in the race. In that one, second, who's running again today, is Roman de Cernane or something, I think it is. Came second, but finished really, really strongly. Got hampered by some of the commotion at the last, was probably a bit further back. I actually think he's going to turn the form on Diego de Charmille, but I think they're both going to come up shy. From the Triumph Hurdle form, So Royale is the first one I've ruled out of it. It was a really bad showing at Cheltenham. I was really disappointed. As I said, I thought he'd run decent, but he just didn't go for whatever reason. He's had a long, hard season. He had some races earlier in the season on heavy ground as well, so I just don't know if it bottomed him out. He just didn't show his full potential. The winner, though, Ivanovic Gorbatov, bounced back from a poor run on heavy ground and won quite nicely in the end. The ground's fine again here, even though as I'm looking now, the rain is starting to come. As the crow flies, I'm probably 6 miles from Aintree Racecourse as the crow flies. So that would have to be a bit of a worry if that got into the ground, but I think he should be okay with it. And, I think he's got a great chance. However, I do think the price that I'm seeing at the moment of 10 to 11 is plenty skinny enough. And the one I actually fancy here is the one who came second to him in that race, the Triumph Hurdle, and that's Apple's Jade of Willie Mullins. Do you know what? When she was up there, she went again. I think she went for home too soon and was a sit and duck. But the one thing I like Ivanovic Gorbatov came up, and I just thought it's going to go and win by 10 lengths. But she kept finding more, and it was only in the last 100 yards did Ivanovic grind it down. Willie Mullins has since come out and said that she had an interrupted festival preparation. That's why she didn't run for 4 months, which makes that run even more remarkable, really. And I've just got a feeling on this day, she's apparently about 5 to 1, looking at some of the betting. I think that should be an each way bet to nothing. And I've got a feeling she's going to turn the form on Ivanovic Gorbachev here, but we'll see. Footpad came third in that race. I think if Ruby Walsh rode the race again, he wouldn't be as far back as he was. But even if he rode the race differently, I still think that horse has got too much to find on the principles. Really interesting race. My 1, 2, 3 there is going to be Apple's Jade from Ivanovic Gorbachev and Footpad. The third race is the Betfred Bowl, one of the big two of the day, which is effectively the main four we're going to concentrate on is the Gold Cup rematch. You've got to mention Safir Daru here because this horse was expected to be the next big thing from the Nichols Yard. Even won the 3 Mile Novice Chase here last year, but it's all him and jumping have not gone hand in hand. There's been mistakes, there's been unseating, there's been falling, there's just been general bad jumping in general. They then abandoned jumping, reverted back to hurdles. It didn't really happen over hurdles, to be honest with you. So now they're having another go at jumping. He does like the course, but it would be an unbelievable turnaround for him to suddenly feature here against the main protagonist from the Gold Cup. And you've got to mention Dinast as well, who's course and distance winner, but obviously, if you look at his form, it's probably not enough to go and worry the main people from the Gold Cup. Irish Cavalier is one of those Gold Cup ones who deserves a mention. He was an amazing fifth, nearly got fourth. But to be honest, he has no real form away from Cheltenham. He looked to be out on his feet at the end of the 3 Mile 2, so I think he's had a really, really tough race. I think he's probably better over 2.5 mile as well. But you've got to mention him, but I don't think he'll take a hand here. So that leaves us with the main three from the Gold Cup, which we're going to start with the one who didn't feature at the finish because he fell, and that is Q Card. He was going very well when he fell, but I tell you what, it was a hell of a fall. And I've actually watched that race probably 10 times now, and the horse was kicking his legs. It was up in the air. It looked a real bad fall. Now, as people know, I don't like backing horses after the race after they fell at the best of times, but he's only had 20 days to get over this. And as a 10-year-old, I think the older the horse gets, they get a bit more savvy up here. And I think, you just don't know what the effect that's had on it. Another slight worry on Q Card is, even though, as a disclaimer, I know this was before his epiglottis operation and he's a completely different horse this year, but he's had 3 chase starts at Aintree and he's been beaten on all 3. Yes, he's been beaten by the likes of Sprinter Sacre. Yes, he was beaten by Don Cossack, but he still possibly hasn't run up to his highest or his best marks at the course. So that's a worry. And bearing in mind he's odds on, I'm going to oppose Q Card here. Jack Adam came second in the Gold Cup, but I've got this nagging feeling. I've got my notes here. Will the course suit? He's not the size of Denman. He doesn't front run necessarily like Denman, but everything about this horse just kind of reminds me of Denman for some reason, and Denman hated Aintree. It's got to be said. The worry I also have with Jack Adam is he's never won. Okay, he's only run twice, but he's never won after the festival, and that includes being beaten at the likes of Punchestown. Now, the note after he got beat at Punchestown, he said, he's had a long, hard season. The Gold Cup bottomed him out, and he hasn't run. He's run well, but he's not as good. Punchestown's at the end of April. This is at the start of April. The time off is less. He was the only one to try and have a go with Don Cossack from a long way out. So, once again, it's a bit of a worry on him. The one I'm coming down on him is because, funny enough, I said the rain's a little bit of rain. The rain is really starting to come down outside now, and that is Don Poley. I think the ground was too fast for him in the Gold Cup, but I still do not know why Davy Russell had this horse, who's usually racing up with the pace, that far off the pace. He ran through and got third, but you know what? I don't think he even had a particularly hard race, which is a weird thing to say. But he's a course and distance winner. He beat Many Clouds on his comeback run in December. I was there. I backed him. He jumped really well, seemed to stay like the course. I think the rain's gone in the ground, and I think he will take a lot of beating. He's about 5 to 1, third favourite, and I think he should be an each way bet to nothing. It's a tough race, but from a 1, 2, 3 here, I am going for Don Poley to beat Q Card, and I'm going to put Jack Adam in third. The Aintree Hurdle is the race after this, over 2.5 mile, which is effectively, bar a couple of stragglers, a Champion Hurdle rematch. I really fancy Annie Power here. Fair play to her. She won the Champion Hurdle. I worried it was a plan B, but she did everything right and, to be honest, just outstayed them up the hill, travelled best. Arguably, this ground is better with a bit more juice in it. Arguably, this is her trip because this is what she stays over generally, other than when she went for the World Hurdle. And it's going to take a very, very good one to beat her. The new one's won this before, but came fourth in the Champion Hurdle. It's starting to look exposed now he's getting older, and if you watch the videos, he's jumping right all the way through, and he's giving away ground. That's a huge worry for me. Nichols Canyon, who I tipped up in the Champion Hurdle, came third that day, coming over a number of bad runs to run on for third. But the worry I have is, after he beat Faheen, he then put in a bad run, and Willie Mullins says we didn't give him enough time in between races. And that was, I think he had something like 38 days or something it was then, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't got it in front of me. This is only 23, so the slight worry, I think the step up in trip is right. The worry I have is, why is he going to go after 23 days, basically? So that's always the slight worry. My 10 or yours, amazing training performance by Nicky Henderson to bring that back to get placed in another Champion Hurdle after 2 years. I worry about the bounce factor. And also, he races quite freely, and I do worry about the trip against a proven stayer like Annie Power. Now, Camping Ground, I thought, would run a better race in the Champion Hurdle. Completely flopped. I think the step up in trip is good. They didn't give him a hard race after he was beaten in that Champion Hurdle. So, do you know what? I'm going to keep putting him in the 3 because one of these days he's going to come good again. Interesting race. 1, 2, 3 is Annie Power to beat Nichols Canyon and Camping Ground. The Fox Hunters 405 is now part 2 of the Festival Fox Hunters on the fringe. I've just looked, he's actually 6-5 favourite. Now, for an amateur race over Grand National Fences, I don't care if he won it last year, that is an unbelievably short price. Yeah, he won at the festival this year, but was all out to do so. It wasn't as impressive as he was in the previous festival. Plus, this horse loves Nina Carberry, but Nina's not on it today. Tomorrow, I should say. Jay Codd is on it. Nothing against him, but I think this horse just loves Nina Carberry. I worry he had a hard race. He deserves to be favourite, but I don't think any horse over a Grand National Fence should be 6-5. I just don't think it ever should be. But he'll run a good race. I actually fancy Pasha de Polder here, who came second to On the Fringe in this race last year and has always shown a liking for these Grand National Fences. Came 5th in the Fox Hunter, giving Victoria Pendleton the ride of her life on a horse, maybe not a bike. And his ground is likely to be ideal here. I just think this horse, they found the key to this horse. He's been running really, really well, even in the races leading up to Cheltenham. People were saying Victoria Pendleton should have gone for the whip in the Fox Hunters. You've got to remember she's a first-season jockey. She's not fully au fait with it. I'm not 100% sure she didn't drop a whip, actually. I don't know if that's ever come out. But, you know, she wanted to drive it out, and the horses can veer with a whip after the last of Cheltenham. So I think she did everything right, to be honest. Richmond ran in the Fox Hunters. Don't think he has the class here. Major Malarkey has been found out in this race before. Will go hard from the front, but I think he's not going to get any better at 13. Current Event ran very well at the festival to come fourth, but he's run over this course and distance before, over these fences, and he hasn't liked them. Katie Walsh is on board, which she might get a bit of improvement, but it's a huge worry that he hasn't liked the fences in the past. The fly in the ointment is Marisonian for Willie Mullins. He won a point last time out. Before that, those been good form over fences, beating Salsify, who's a previous Fox Hunter winner at Cheltenham. Maybe not in the same form now. If this was a handicap, he'd be on a marker 131. He could be absolutely thrown in here. Though I always like festival, like form over the fences at Aintree for whatever reason. But I think he could be potentially anything. Mendip Express interests me because he got placed in the Beachy Chase, albeit 2.5 years ago. He's very lightly raced, ran a decent race at Cheltenham, and I think he could go very, very well here. And I'm going to put him in the 3. It's a tough race as always, but the 1, 2, 3 is going to be Pasha de Polder from On the Fringe, and I'm going to put Mendip Express in there as well. Very quickly on to the next, because it's a race I can't stand. I've got a terrible record in it, which is the Red Rum Handicap Grade 3 Chase. It's effectively, bar a couple noteworthy others, a rematch of the Grand Annual. Minella Presence, one of the ones who didn't go in it, is fresh, has clearly been waiting for the good ground, and looks to be on a great mark. The worry I have here, though, the form hasn't been franked from the horses he's beat or run against. Maybe they've run on soft ground when he's been waiting for the better ground. I don't know, but I like the form, and he doesn't have it in the book at this moment. Fayette County was a really good second at Ludlow last time, and the winner's gone in again since. The worry is he's done nothing before them, and you've got to worry is it a one-off. However, I suspect it's not. Twice he fell when he was going really, really well. Since then, his jumping's been a lot better. He got pulled up the race before last, but that was in bottomless ground, which is fine. And do you know what? If it wasn't a one-off, and I'm willing to think it's not, I think he's on a really good mark. Now, looking at the Grand Annual form, there's 7 or 6 that run in here. Solar Impulse won the Grand Annual. The ground should be okay, but he's got more weight to follow, and I don't think they're going to go the ludicrous pace they went in the Grand Annual here, to be honest with you. Croco Bay fell in the Grand Annual, and his form hasn't been as good as it was last year anyway, so he could bounce back because it's that type of race where they do, but on form alone, you can't fancy him. I like Dandridge. He came second in the Grand Annual. He gets a £4 pull with Solar Impulse. He was one of the ones who actually raced quite prominently throughout and was still there at the end. I said the race didn't really suit him. I think Aintree will, because he's got his form on flat tracks is better as well, so I think Aintree's got to be more to his liking. So I think he's got a great chance here. Surf and Turf won this last year. He always runs well at Aintree. He's only once finished out the places when he didn't stay when they upped him to 2 mile 5. 28 to 1. Do you know what? If you think I fancy nothing, let's just have a few quid on something each way. That could be the way to go. But I don't think he'll make the 3. But sometimes you just have to have a punt, don't you? Workbench is a good horse, but inconsistent. Pearl's Legend was a good 5th in the Grand Annual, but has exactly a stone more than when he came 3rd in this last year. Has he improved that much? I don't think so. But he should run a good race. It's impossible, that's why I haven't spent that much time on it, really, to be very confident on this. But I'm going to go with Dandridge, because I'm going with a festival form these 3 days, to beat Fayette County, and I think Solar Impulse might make up the fray. The last race is interesting, which is the Mears Bumper, and I actually really fancy Augusta Kate here. She was favourite for the Champion Bumper, and yes, she only came 7th, but that Ballyandy, the vibes for this horse is that it's something special. It's a good, she was only beaten 6 lengths. She raced prominently from a good way out up the hill and kept going, and now she's back against the Mears, and I think the Mears form she has is head and shoulders above everything else. 7 to 2 could be a big price, provided the Champion Bumper hasn't taken too much off her. Copper K is interesting because she was progressive before last time out when, yes, she got a bit stuck in the mud, but I've got to be honest, it wasn't Richard Johnson's finest hour in the saddle. I don't know what he was doing. He was up there cruising. They all legged it away from him and he didn't move. And then he got going and only got beaten by about 5-6 lengths. And I think he just had a bad one on there. Back on good ground, and providing that hasn't dropped or bottomed her out, or the other excuse which we may hear after this is the Mears in season, Copper K should run well. Cape Grace is interesting for Nicky Henderson. He came second on his comeback run this season, which looks good form because the horse that came 5th in that comeback run went over hurdles and racked up a 3-timer, so that form's quite good. He improved to win the latest Egg and Spoon race at Fakenham. It was a terrible race, but all he could do was beat what was there. 14 to 1. If Nicky Henderson can get some form into her, Cape Grace is a huge price. La Bargara is interesting because Warren Greatchicks is going amazing in bumpers at the moment. This is a course and distance winner at the first meeting of the year at Aintree back in October. Good ground is the key. The form's been semi-frank without being over the top, but she's fresh compared to a lot of these. 14 to 1 again, she could be a big price. Mike Khaleesi's interesting for Alan King. Very good on breeding, but the form is questionable. Is the type to get better with age, but I don't think the form at the moment is good enough. While an interesting one is Shattered Love for Gigginstown and Gordon Elliott. Unbeaten in 2 starts, but both on soft and heavy ground. The ground is unknown. If he handles this good ground, then he could go very close, but breeding suggests he will always want give, and that's why they've gone for it. My 1, 2, 3 here I'm going to go for, though, is the proven form of Augusta Kate to beat Copper K and La Bargara. You probably noticed this video is going darker and darker. I'm going to see if I can show you this. The weather outside in Merseyside now is absolutely shocking. It looks like snow and hail. So I have a feeling this going might completely change by tomorrow. So bear this in mind. You might want a horse suddenly that wants soft ground. Okay, I'm going to be doing a video for day 2 at some point tomorrow. Remember, if you're going to go and check out Bronnie on one of the stages, ask around, find out where she is. And yeah, as always, post your comments of what you're back in and what you're up to. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for day 2. Thank you.